In our first story, government has shown reasonable progress towards fulfilling its campaign promises. This is the assessment from policy think tank Imani Africa. President Akufo-Addo's 1 year in office, while it commends government for implementing programs such as the free senior high school policy, the group raised concerns about government's failure to fulfill key campaign promises, including the One District, One Factory program. There's more in the following report by Joseph Akable.
Imani has in the past undertaken assessments of government performance by attaching scores based on promises fulfilled. This year's assessment did not take that form, as the think tank rather analyzed government policies with no scores attached. On the economy, Imani commended government for attaining some stability with inflation and debt to GDP ratio recording a decline. Imani, however, pointed out government's failure to set up a fiscal council as promised as a minus. A research associate at Imani, Barbara Andor, presented the findings.
We know that the Fiscal Council has not been established within the first year. It was mentioned in the 2017 budget. There are no accounts of activities given to be undertaken for the establishment of the Fiscal Council in the 2018 budget. And we have a direct question for the government. Is the Fiscal Council no longer seen as an anchor for setting up and monitoring medium-term fiscal policy?
On education, the flagship free SHS program earned plaudits but was equally criticized for failing to address the needs of some students.
In the free SHS debate, we look at equity versus equality. We know that issues of access and equality have been addressed to some extent. However, we are concerned about the issue of equity because our students come from different socioeconomic backgrounds and we are providing them with the same amount of resources. This may not necessarily achieve equity. So there's a need for proper targeting because some students may necessarily need more funds than the free SHS is providing.
Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Koko Anyidoho, who sat through the presentation, believes the findings confirm his party's position that government has underperformed.
It's pretty obvious that a lot of talk has gone on from the point of government, from the manifesto pledges through the first budget presentation in 2017 to what actually they have done in 1 year. So the report tells us in aggregate terms that a lot of talk has gone on from government, but in terms of tangibles and in terms of the achievement index, there's a lot work to be done. And of course, somebody will say they have a 4-year mandate and they've only done 1 year. It is true, but if you are measuring by the 1 year standards, there's still a lot of work for the government to do.
Imani intends to present its findings in other parts of the country.
So what's government's own assessment of Imani's assessment? George Anda is Deputy Communications Minister. He joins me on the line. Good evening and welcome to the show. You were at that program assessing your government. What are your thoughts on the assessment of government by Imani?
Good evening, Araba, and good evening to, I don't know whether it's viewers or this
it's viewers.
Okay, so good evening to your viewers. Well, I think that if you listen to the Imani presentation, their general assessment at the end of the first year was that reasonable progress has been made. Now, this reasonable progress was done versus the number of manifesto promises. Normally, what you would do is that the manifesto gives the highlight of the broad areas that your government or a government intends to execute in the first 4 years if they are in power. And you do remember that the theme for our manifesto was the agenda for change, creating prosperity and equal opportunities for all. In the first year, what should normally happen is that you look at the budget and you look at the deliverables versus the budget. Now, in all sectors of the economy, there has been significant progress as far as the deliverables in the various sectors against the budget programs that were concerned. There were a few misses, there were significant learnings that have been made. And if you recall, His Excellency the President identified all these areas, all these deliverables. The most important thing being that as far as management of the economy was concerned, all the indicators are now that were nose-diving are now trending positively. And the flagship project or the flagship program, 3 years teachers, obviously has been delivered. In the area of agriculture, there has been a significant increase in terms of our growth. As industry that was in decline after the end of 2016, at the end of 2017, trending positively. I'm not too sure whether my friend Kukwanjido, who listened to the presentation that we all listened to, because if indeed he listened to that presentation or he's giving his assessment of that presentation, there's absolutely no way that he would say that the government has failed to deliver. But I believe that your news team was there, your journalists were there, and then
right.
they would educate the citizens as to what the truth of Imani's assessment was. And I repeat that at the end of the first year from Imani is reasonable progress has been made.
Right. Now, one concern that Imani raised was the slow pace at which your flagship policy of one district, one factory is being rolled out. What appears to be the challenge?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that you do recall that at that presentation as well, Imani did say that a number of proposals had been evaluated and a number of proposals had been assessed. His Excellency the President has also said that there are, and indeed the Secretariat has also said that a number of them have been identified for rollout. So yes, in terms of actual factories operating, we may have missed it, but I believe that going forward that is going to be addressed. I mean, there's a whole process. You don't just get up and go and institute a factory, or you don't just go up and go and get up and go and build a factory. It goes through a process. Hello?
I can hear you, sir. Please continue.
Yes, I'm saying that you don't just get up and then build a factory. It goes through the process. And I guess that is what is being done.
Very well.
So then for the number that have been identified for 2018, I have a bit of confidence that these ones would happen.
And just to refresh our memories, what number is that? How many are we expected to roll out this year?
If my memory serves me right, I think it's about 51. I can't immediately remember. I think it's about 51 that the Secretariat has said that they were ready to roll out.
All right, very well. Many thanks for your time. That was Deputy Communications Minister George Anda there. Now, the 2 Guantanamo Bay detainees being harbored by the Ghana government will continue to stay in the country. That's according to Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration Minister Shirley Ayoko-Botwe, who briefed Parliament on the status of the 2 on Wednesday. The minister told Parliament the 2 detainees were granted refugee status under the John Mahama administration. The Akufo-Addo administration's decision on the 2 had been much anticipated, especially since the agreement between Ghana and the U.S. government to harbor them for 2 years elapsed this month. Parliamentary correspondent Joseph Opoku-Gapo has more.
We will continue to find ways out if it's the wish of Ghanaians.
Shirley Ayoko-Botwe told members of Parliament the absence of an exit clause in the agreement, coupled with the NDC government's decision to grant the 2 refugee status, make it difficult for government to decide on the way forward on the issue.
So, Mr. Speaker, it has been quite difficult, and we still continue to look at ways in which we can clean this thing up, but for now, it is impossible to do anything about it because they are legally resident here as a result of them being granted refugee status. In conclusion, I did say in my statement that we are constrained as a government to explore any other options at this time. But then we will await an in-depth examination of the issues by the appropriate agencies.
But Minority Spokesperson on Foreign Affairs, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, disagrees.
The Minister for Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration at the time the Honorable Hannah Sewatete, put out a public statement informing the people of Ghana about this arrangement. So to say that the people of Ghana did not know, never knew, is false. It's false. Let us be truthful in this house. It's false. It's false. The foreign minister put out a statement. Immediately they entered into the agreement with the Americans. A public statement.
Defense Minister Dominic Nitiwul says the NDC government hid a lot of details on the issue from Ghanaians and Parliament.
Let me say once again that the question that necessitated this particular statement is as a result of people asking when are the Gitmo 2 going to be sent out of this country, including people from this side that have taken the position that government should send them. But they refuse to tell the people of Ghana that today the people are not just sitting down and being guided, but they are refugees. I think that they owe the people of Ghana an apology. It is true. You really owe the people of Ghana an apology. You have tied in the hands of the people of Ghana at the back, then you come out in the air shouting as if you knew nothing about it. Meanwhile, you took the decision to make them refugees. You took the decision to make it very difficult for anybody to send them out. You took that decision. You knew that you had made the people refugees. You had committed to the people of Ghana holding them as refugees, knowing that it is extremely difficult to repatriate people into Yemen who are on daily basis fighting one another with no functioning government. And then you come out and say, send them away. Send them to where? Send them to where?
National Security Minister Albert Kandapa agrees, saying the NDC administration has put the country in a difficult situation.
Were we to integrate them into Ghanaian society only for a period of 2 years, and thereafter, that is the end of it? Probably that could have been the intention. But then the second header, Mr. Speaker, the government of the day then found it necessary to give them a refugee status. Mr. Speaker, this complicates it. And in my opinion, by giving them that status, you have promoted them from protective custody into refugees. Now they are not just in Ghana for us to give them some protection. They are in Ghana as refugees. And the lawyers have pointed out that there are implications that go with being given that status. One of which is the decision to let him go or not does not just rest on government, but on him. The people must agree to go. It changes the whole equation. And these are the two problems that we are facing, which I believe this House should help us to resolve.
But the minority in Parliament again disagrees.
You see, when a blind man says he will throw a stone at you, he must be stepping on it. In this matter, you are not stepping on any stone, and you say you take the terrorists away. Take them away. You had an agreement. You had the blind people, no stone under your leg. And Mr. Speaker, I'll end with another proverb. It's only a blind fool that you step on his something 2 times. And if you can't see, can't you feel it? If you can't see, can't you feel it? So, Mr. Speaker, you knew, I'm quoting, that there was even the matter, Mr. Speaker, the matter they have brought to the fore was a foreclosed matter as far as the U.S. is concerned. And indeed, in the agreement that we ratified, Mr. Speaker, there was room to integrate them into Ghana. That is why it is not legally wrong, not morally wrong, to grant them refugee status, because the fundamental object was to integrate them. How do you integrate them? How do you integrate them? Mr. Speaker, if we are not obliged, why was this Parliament invited to ratify and not to reject it? Mr. Speaker, in concluding,
Foreign Affairs Minister Shirley Ayokoboche assured that the two are not harmful, despite claims by some analysts that they could be dangerous.
Here is a profile of the two Gitmo detainees, now refugees in Ghana. So we have Mohammed Omar Mohammed bin Atef. He arrived in Ghana January 7, 2017. His nationality is Yemeni. He was incarcerated for 14 years in Guantanamo Bay detention camp, and he was recommended for release 2006. He is around 38 years old. American intelligence analysts estimate that Al-Dubi was born in 1980 in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. The second detainee is Khalid Mohammed Salih Al-Dubi. He arrived in Ghana on January 7, 2015. Nationality Yemeni. He was incarcerated for 14 years in the Guantanamo Bay detention camp. He was recommended for release in 2006. He is believed to be 37 years old, and American intelligence analysts estimate that Al-Dubi was born in 1981 in Taif, Saudi Arabia. You're still watching Joy News Prime with me, Araba Kumsin. Stay with us. We're taking a short break. When we come back, we're having a discussion with the Refugee Board on this matter, and we'll hear from former Security Advisor Brigadier Nunu Mensah on this as well. Welcome back to Joy News Prime. Let's go back to our top story about the two Guantanamo Bay detainees who have been granted refugee status in Ghana. Now, former National Security Advisor Brigadier Retired Joseph Nunu Mensah believes the two detainees do not pose a threat to Ghana's security as suggested by some. He spoke a while ago on Upfront with Raymond Aqua.
To my mind, what I've heard, nothing sinister. No, I mean, I'm not worried too much. I'm not worried, frankly, I'm not worried too much about these people. We have a government, and we have confidence in the government. So we rely on the government. It's assured us. So what reason have I got to worry about?
Can government still monitor them now that they are refugees?
Well, they should. I mean, I was in Britain.
Do we monitor all refugees?
No. I mean, we've got security intelligence systems in every country.
Okay.
They follow people. Britain, America, they do it. I mean, today if you land, they do it. If most of these people that roam about in Europe, they are being monitored, they are being surveyed. So I assume that we are doing the same thing here. We have been properly trained. So I don't think I have any worry for Ghana from these people.
Who is supposed to pay for the surveillance and monitoring that this government will do?
I wasn't the one government was meeting America and discussing. I'm sure they.
Yes, I will.
If they raise the issue, they'll give them money. I mean,
America will pay for it.
Yes, of course. We can't. I'm sure they pay for it. They get them money or something in lieu. I'm sure they did that. I'm sure they did. If we are doing our job properly, we should demand compensation for the risk we are taking and looking after them. I'm sure they did.
So when were the Gitmo detainees given refugee status, and what was the criteria the Ghana Refugee Board considered? For some answers to this, I have been joined in the studio by Programs Coordinator of the Ghana Refugee Board, Tete Paddy. Welcome to the show, Tete.
Thank you.
So first of all, I mean, I guess the question on everybody's minds was, when did this come officially to the Ghana Refugee Board for government's request for them to be granted refugee status?
Well, what I can tell you is that the refugee status, they were recognized as refugees in July of 2016.
July 2016?
Yes.
But what was the process? Did government have to give any explanations as to why they needed them to be given refugee status?
Well, first of all, anybody can apply to be recognized as a refugee. As long as they fit the criteria, they will be recognized as refugees. The criteria should be that the applicant has a fear of returning to the country of origin, due to possible persecution, which will be based on their religion, or their political opinion, their race, their nationality, or the membership of a particular social grouping. Those are the 5 grounds. And so anybody who applies for these for refugee status based on the fear, or based on one of these 5 criteria that I listed, will be considered. The other thing is that for persons who are suspected of having been engaged in combat, or persons who have actually been involved in fighting, we refer to them as excludable, in the sense that we may not grant them refugee status. However, if such persons have undergone DDR, DDR is disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration. If that individual has gone through DDR, then they may be considered for refugee status.
In this case, had these two undergone DDR? Well,
what we know is that the process they went through in Guantanamo Bay constituted DDR. And so such a person would have renounced any violence if they had been involved in violence. In this case, we are told that they were not actually involved in violence. We don't know that for a fact. But once they've gone through the process, it qualifies them to be considered for refugee status.
So in the case of these two, I mean, what were your considerations in granting them the refugee status?
Well, the key thing is that they cannot return to their country of origin. Yemen, as we all know, is in turmoil, and for you to forcibly return somebody who's seeking asylum back to Yemen would go against, it would contravene the UN Convention on Refugees and our own Ghana refugee law based on which we operate.
I see. Interesting. So in granting them this request, did you interview them? Did you have a chance to speak to them? And what was their demeanor?
Yeah, I mean, our staff, the procedure for granting refugee status is such that you have to be interviewed. And then there'll be an assessment based on the information you provide during the interview. And that is what is based on. That is what we base the decision on.
Okay. We understand that they are married, they have family in the country. Did they indicate that on the application form as well?
At the time they were interviewed, they were not married.
They were not married?
No.
This was 2 years ago?
This was 2 years ago.
Well, July
less
2016?
Than 2 years ago, yeah.
Okay, July 2016.
Yeah, July
they were not married at the time. Okay. So what role does the refugee board play once they grant them refugee status? Do you monitor their movements? What do you do?
Yeah, normally, with refugees, once we grant them refugee status, we like to know where you live. We like to know that you're still in the country after a while. So we do periodic verification, that's what we call it, just to ensure that you're still in the country, you're still living within the rules under the law of Ghana, as you should. So from time to time, the documentation that we give them has an expiration period. And so for that reason, they certainly must come, as a matter of necessity, come to Ghana Refugee Board to renew their identity.
So as we speak, you know where they live?
With these particular individuals, we do not know where they live, but national security is, I believe, very much aware of everywhere they go and what their movements are and so on. So,
are they engaged in any form of work? Are they working, or what are they doing? Was that indicated on the application form as well?
I personally do not have information on whether they're involved in any economic activity or not. What I do know is that with these two men particularly, national security is in charge of whatever they do, their upkeep and...
So what role does the refugee board play when it comes to these two?
The granting or the recognition of a person as a refugee accords them international protection, what we call international protection, which means that even though they are not living in their country of origin, the country of asylum provides protection, legal protection, makes sure they have access to social services, that's education, health, and so on. So that basically is what we do. And then also, the recognition of them as refugees means that they cannot be forcibly returned to a country where they are afraid or they fear for their lives.
So it's curious. I mean, once you're telling me that you have granted them the asylum status, but you're not directly responsible for them. National security is. So how do you monitor if anything should happen to them?
Refugee issues are security, they're national security issues. And so we work quite closely, even on other issues, with national security. And so if there's a problem, I'm sure that national security would inform us.
Okay. I'm sure a lot of people might want to know exactly what they stated on their forms when you interviewed them, or your personnel from the refugee board interviewed them. And I asked earlier about their demeanor. How do they look? Do they look sober? Do they look eager to return home? Do they look agitated? Describe to us how it went.
Unfortunately, I'm not permitted to reveal details of the interviews that we conduct. The only information that we're allowed to put out is whether or not we've recognized these persons as refugees. But I mean, I'm guessing that we probably meet them on the street and we don't know who they are, because I don't think that I don't think that we really have any cause for worry, really. I think that these are people who want to live here peacefully, I suspect.
So you don't think that they will be a menace to the society, that they can turn back to their old ways?
Well, from the interview that we conducted, we believe that they intend to live here peacefully. But like I said, I'm very sure that they're being very closely monitored, and so we shouldn't worry.
All right, we'll take your word for it. Thank you very much. That is Tete Paddy. He is communications manager for the Ghana Refugee Board. Many thanks for your time.
Hello again. Good evening to you. It's now time for business. General Secretary of the Teachers and Educational Workers Union, TEU, Augustine Sakuru Kabu, has confirmed receipt of his share of over 3.5 billion Ghana cedis Tier 2 pension funds paid by government from the Temporary Pensions Fund account, also known as a TPFA. 12 labor unions have since 2013 been agitating for the release of their pension contributions locked up in the TPFA at the Bank of Ghana. There were earlier concerns by some members of TEU that the release of the funds to the 12 labor unions did not make provisions for them. In an interview with Joy Business, General Secretary of TEU, Augustine Sakuru Kabu, however, says there was a miscommunication which excluded the teachers' union.
It's not that government have not released the TPFA fund, of which Teachers and Educational Workers Union is not part. It's been released, but the publications of it has couched in such a way that Teachers and Educational Workers Union was not mentioned in the list of the 12 labor unions who were in the struggle right from 2013-14 to date, where the final results of the struggle or the battle has ended, where the funds have been released. It brings pleasure to me and the national leadership of TEU that we are not working for our members, and we want to correct that impression. We have been in the hot thick and thin of this struggle, and we are happy that it has yielded results to this date.
So these funds, were they paid in full or just part payment?
They were paid in full. The total sum of the TPFA fund is about 3.5 billion plus. For now, that is the amount per what has been saving in the Bank of Ghana. That's what has been issued. Behind the scene, there is a smaller committee that has been put in place to do data reconciliation, and that will reflect the total amount that will come out. So if there are variances in terms of the current amount and what has been released, those things can be sorted out later. But for us, the main thing is that the bulk amount has been released, and we look forward to investing it to get better retirement package for our members out there.
International NGO Oxfam is pushing for some changes to the country's policies to ensure fair distribution of wealth to curb increasing poverty levels. This follows a recent report by the organization that revealed widening inequality gaps last year. The report, published on Monday, coincided with the gathering of some of the world's richest people at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Oxfam says billionaires had been created at a record rate of 1 every 2 days over the past 12 months.
According to the report, 82% of all wealth created globally last year went to the richest 1% of the global population, while the bottom 50% saw no increase at all. Essentially, billionaires saw their wealth increase by $762 billion in 12 months. According to Oxfam, the trend revealed that the economy is biased in favor of the rich. Abdul Karim Mohammed is the program manager, accountable governance at Oxfam.
Especially, if you talk about Ghana, there are a lot of loopholes, for instance, in our tax policies. We give a lot of tax exemptions and tax holidays, all in an attempt to attract multinationals and foreign companies to invest. But the question we should be asking is, are they paying their fair share of contribution in terms of taxes and the rest? The observation is that a lot of multinationals across the globe are exploiting some of these loopholes, because some of them are even due to the lack of capacity of the state agencies that are mandated to assess even the tax liability of these companies. The Tax Justice Network estimates in excess of about $7 billion of illicit financial flows in about the past 3-4 years. How can all these happen when we have state agencies that are mandated to control some of these? So we are saying that the way the economy is set up for the rich to easily rig.
Now, American banking and finance firm holding company JP Morgan Chase & Co. says it plans to expand its African presence into Ghana and Kenya. Chief Executive Jamie Dimon was speaking on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos, Switzerland. He said the bank would target Ghana and Kenya, two countries in which local regulators have previously blocked the U.S. banking giant's expansion plans. The announcement follows JP Morgan's unveiling of a $20 billion investment plan on Tuesday, which will see it hike wages, hire more, and open new branches as it takes advantage of sweeping changes to the U.S. tax laws and a more favorable regulatory environment. The 5-year plan will see the U.S. bank ramp up overseas investment in addition to its domestic growth plans after it finished cleaning up troubled mortgages following the 2007-2009 financial crisis. Now, a non-for-profit organization, Invest in Africa, says it remains committed to building the capacity of small and medium-scale enterprises to become globally competitive. Country manager for Invest in Africa, Clarence Nate, says his outfit will continue to guide local businesses to meet local and international standards. He was speaking to Joy Business ahead of the Invest in Africa SME Excellence Awards scheduled for Thursday at the La Beach Hotel in Accra.
Sometimes, everybody's quick to talk about scale up, but before we get into scaling up an organization, sometimes you have to look at what are the disenablers in the first place that need to be dealt with before you can scale up. And in that respect, I think what we found is that a lot of the SMEs that we work with, we've realized that there are some key barriers, in terms of, particularly in the area of managerial and technical competence, which we try to address with our business linkage program, which I talked about earlier on. Now, once we have done that, you find that these organizations now have, better governance, better systems in place, and in a better position sometimes even access finance, as well as put in a better bid for tenders. So that's the one area where, at least from a BLP perspective, we try to address first, removing the barriers to the managerial and technical competence. And then once that is done, I think that gives them room to then sort of be able to access markets and finance, which we feel is a critical first step as well on that journey.
All right, so the awards ceremony is in partnership with EcoBank, Talo, Ernst & Young, GGBL, GIPC, Modec, AFDB, Newmont, and the Dutch Development Bank. Now, the European Union has pledged to leverage Ghana's market leadership position to cement its trade relationship with the other members of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. Head of the EU delegation in Ghana, William Hanna, was speaking in an interview after the maiden meeting with the committee set up by Ghana on the interim economic partnership agreement with the European Union. The committee has been tasked to develop new strategies to ensure Ghana benefits from the interim agreement and to ensure the country is not used as a dumping ground for goods from European countries. Ebenezer Sabute was there.
The European Union has indicated plans to leverage Ghana as a market leader in West Africa to cement its relationship with other countries of the sub-region. Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are currently implementing the Interim Economic Partnership Agreement, IEPA. The EU says it is working closely with Ghana to further diversify and expand the country's productive and export potential, particularly in the agricultural sector, where Ghana has a comparative advantage. In an interview, Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry, Robert Ahum-Kalinsi, expressed confidence the European market will help to meet the country's industrial growth needs.
What the progressive nature of opening of each other's markets are. What are some of the things we need to do to make sure that Ghana wishes to ensure that it can export products rather than just primary, so industrialized products? What are some of the things the EU is keenly ensuring to try and make sure its market also gets access to Ghana, because it's a two-way process. We want access to their market and they want access to us. Now you may ask yourself, why is this important? And as I mentioned a little earlier, as we seek to move, as Our Excellency the President has made clear, beyond aid, and we focus on industrial transformation as a key part of what it is that we want to do as a country. When we
That's all we have for you by way of business tonight. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji Riafi. Have a good evening.
Now, final year students of the Asaka ESD College of Education in the Eastern Region Wednesday protested against school management over undue deductions and delay in payment of their allowances. The students, who are on teaching practice and reside outside the school, stormed campus to demand their money. The students allege that the principal of the school has invested their allowances into treasury bills. They are, however, asking government to investigate the school administration over the delay of the allowances and undue deductions.
The allowances have been, some of the money have been paid to the school. 3 months now. First month, second month, third month. We were told to come for the money before vacation, but when we came, the principal explained to us that the check was ready, but the money has not been paid yet. So we should wait. Now we wait till reopen school again. That is last 2 weeks. We were here last week for our money to be paid to us. Only to come and hear from the administration is that the money is not ready. They will pay it to us on this very day. That is Wednesday, 24th. Today is 24th. Now we are here to claim the money, and they are telling us that I run away. Yes. Or something like that. No, not that they have started the money, but they are not willing to pay our money. Now, we want the government to pay all our money to our UC tax, so that we claim all our 400 Ghana from them. We are not ready to fight with administration for the rest of our money. So we want government to pay all money to our UC. Go there, we claim our money. We don't have any problem with administration. So 300 students, we are not taking any feeding fee. We are not paying any feeding fee to us. We are not paying anything, but they are taking everything. Our UC, yes, they deduct 200 from it. So you take 200 on your UC, then you come for the school for the rest of the 200. But now they are not claim any money from the school yet. So only 6 million that we have claimed from the government allowances. What?
You're still watching Joy News Prime. Still to come, academic work at Ejisuman Senior High School in the Ashanti region this morning stalled following accusations from the Ejisu community that teachers have been sexually feasting on female students. Now, former President Kufuor is asking government to consider leasing ranches to nomadic herdsmen as a solution to the farmer-herdsman challenge. He believes local assemblies can generate some income by leasing ranches to these herdsmen. Tensions between farmers and herdsmen in some parts of the country have heightened in recent times, prompting the Fulani community to appeal to government to cease its Operation Cow-Leg exercise. The former president made the call during a discussion in Accra organized by the Global Panel on Agriculture and Food Systems for Nutrition, of which he is a co-chair. There's more in this report.
Former president, during the discussion in Accra, organized by the Global Panel on Agriculture and Food Systems for Nutrition, noted that leasing ranches to nomadic herdsmen was the safest means of managing the farmer-herdsman challenge.
We haven't come by ranching. Ranching, that is creating or demarcating lands that are developed as farms right across the country. That we say herdsmen could be directed to camp their herds to sort of pasture at a fee. What we should be perhaps thinking about as policy is encouraging the local governments across our country to see if they could develop ranches that could be leased to these farmers, herdsmen, who could generate resources for the local councils or assemblies to use in also providing services for their people.
Touching on issues of subsidies for farmers, the former president, who is also the co-chair of the Global Panel on Agriculture and Food Systems for Nutrition, said it would not be prudent to subsidize farm produce for farmers, but should rather empower them to produce and be able to withstand competition.
Farmers that would show the indications or show the capabilities of doing it right, where we've got farmers that with a bit of help can deliver competitively. Then I would say government putting out some subsidies to empower them to do it right. Should go ahead and help such people. But subsidies as policy perhaps is not something we should look at on medium to long term. The whole idea is to render our farmers competent and efficient to be able to hold their own on the international markets.
Former UK Chief Scientific Advisor Sir John Beddington congratulated Ghana on its commitment and achievement on nutrition. According to him, government planting for food and jobs are testimonies of its will to promote food security.
And the planting for food and jobs idea and the way that's being taken forward is we would endorse enormously. And we see that there is the potential that if that particular program also focuses on nutrition and thinks about how planting for food and jobs can actually be manipulated in probably a relatively straightforward way, it would have the enormous effect of significantly improving not just the planting for jobs agenda, but it's seriously improving the agenda for nutrition in the country as a whole.
The panel also charged the country to improve nutrition and achieve Ghana's 2030 agenda for sustainable development.
Now, Member of Parliament for Damico Avenue constituency, Sarah Adrasafo, says government will soon cut sod for the construction of a 504-room flat for police personnel in the Kwabenya area. A modern police post is also expected to be constructed to help combat rising crime levels in the constituency. Adrasafo disclosed this when she visited the Kwabenya District Police Station, where a police officer was gunned down by armed men who freed some inmates. She also shot down claims by the minority in Parliament that Ghana is in a state of insecurity. Komladum reports.
Member of Parliament for the Damico Avenue constituency, Adrasafo, was at the Kwabenya police station Wednesday to get first-hand information of last Sunday's deadly raid on the police station. An inspector on duty was gunned down by armed men who subsequently freed 7 cell inmates. The incident has shocked many, causing public outrage at the brazen nature criminals are attacking security personnel. Days after the incident, MP for the area who visited the Kwabena police station Wednesday announced government will in the coming days cut short for the construction of a 504 occupation facility for police personnel in the area to boost security there.
Unfortunate, and my heart pours out to the family of the deceased policeman. We are far advanced with the procurement procedures for the president to cut short for a project in this constituency. It is a 504 police flats. It is going to provide accommodation for the police, 405 flats for the police service. Atomic Energy have provided land for that project, and it's a PPP project. It's a private-public partnership. And in that project, there is going to be a modern police station within that, a training center for the police, a park for them to train. They would have gymnastic centers in there as well.
She's also been dismissing insecurity claims by the minority.
I want to calm all nerves in the constituency. The Member of Parliament, I want to reiterate that point, that we are all safe. Government is on top of security matters in this country, and we should shy away from the propaganda from the opposition that indeed we are not safe. We are.
At the residence of the slain police cop at Pokwase Teacher Copper, Adwa Safo assured the family of her officer's support during the funeral rites of the late Inspector Emmanuel Ashilavi. An emotional Adwa Safo, struggling to hold back her tears, also donated an undisclosed amount of money to the family. Family of the late Inspector Emmanuel Ashilavi say final funeral rites will be announced at an event to mark 1 week since the passing of the police officer on Sunday.
Now, Member of Parliament for Ablekuma North constituency, Nanekia Owusu-Friye, says she will prioritize the needs of MPP members seeking jobs in her constituency before any others. According to her, the interest of MPP members is paramount to her. You will recall similar comments made by Ghana's High Commissioner to South Africa, George A.C. Boateng, which generated huge uproar, which he later apologized. Well, the Ablekuma North MP has been justifying her comments. She's been speaking exclusively to my colleague, Kwesi Parker-Wilson. Watch.
I have been able to secure jobs for over 100 boys in this constituency. And a lot of them can testify to it. I go rounds ensuring that even if it's my friend from a school and the person has established a business, I say, I have 2 boys, should I bring them? The government has also provided jobs. When you go to TOR, Harbour, Forestry, DVLA, I have over 20 boys in DVLA.
I see. And they are all MPP members?
No. It's not about MPP, NDC.
But of course, they are your priority. The MPP members
of course, they are my priority.
And that you make sure that they get jobs first before any other Ghanaian.
Because this one I emphasize that every member of parliament or government that comes ensures that those who followed you and helped you get a place to.
But of course, I mean, you're not member of parliament for just MPP members within the constituency.
That's why I'm saying that.
But why you just say your priority is the MPP members?
No. Listen, everybody, we are not trying to be honest. Everybody, NDC member will tell you NDC is his priority.
I see.
Yes.
But we're all Ghanaians. But
yes,
I mean,
but
so Ghana should be your priority.
My statement from beginning was that it doesn't matter whether you come from NDC, NPP, CPP, or wherever. The fact that you need a job and you come at the right time, you stay, I give it to you.
But you place MPP before
but
NDC.
If an MPP comes, somebody who was climbing the tree to hit the wall with banners, posters, going house to house, is standing there. And somebody whom I do not know says, okay, this is a job. The MPP member is qualified, this one too is qualified. The two people are standing there. I'm asking you, if it were you, who will you pick first?
Of course, I mean, I should be asking you that. Who are you going to pick?
No, you. Who will you pick first?
But you are the member of parliament.
No,
you have to take care of the constituents.
Let's take it that you are the member of parliament.
Of course, I'm a member of parliament. You know that you are the member of parliament.
And where you are working now, if the priority comes or the opportunity comes, and two people are there, and you are not a member of parliament, but your own blood brother is example to this one. He qualifies. Somebody you do not know anywhere also just appear. He also qualifies. You say that my brother qualified. This one I don't know, so let me give it to the one I don't know. I mean, we are human beings.
Academic work at the Ejusuman Senior High School in the Ashanti region this morning stalled following accusations from the Ejusu community that teachers have been sexually feasting on female students. The Ejusuman Senior High School Board and teachers addressed a press conference to dispel allegations of sexual harassment. The board also called the Gender Ministry and National Security to properly investigate the claims made against school authorities. Prince Apia has more in the following report.
In a press conference, the teachers alleged media publications about sexual abuse in the school are lacking proper investigations. They said it is untrue that teachers demand sex from the female students for seized cell phones, especially before they give them back. The accused, rather, the Ejoso Nkoswahene Nana Kofi Poku of meddling in the school's activities and inciting students against teachers and having sexual affairs with a student. Reverend Father Paul Atensia is the board chairman.
We know that this issue is giving some kind of panic, fear to the parents, and they would like to take the opportunity to tell the parents that they should rest assured that certainly we'll do everything in our powers to make sure that we deal with the issue to the bottom of it. Since 2015, it is since 2015 that he is alleging that some teachers are having girlfriends in the school, and he is also alleged by the teachers that he is also having sexual affairs with some of the students. For us as teachers, as board and others who have done our investigations and nothing have come up that such and such a teacher is having an affair. And so because this is taking a national and international dimension now, that is why we are appealing to the Ministry of Gender and then also the National Security to come in, because we will not allow any student's right to be violated, and we will not allow any student's future to be destroyed. And so we want to see the truth.
Meanwhile, Nana Kofi Poku says all the counter allegations against him are false. According to him, he acted for the good of students of Ejusuman Senior High School and residents of the community. He who alleges must prove with evidence. I have evidence of everything that I've said. The sexual abuses are true, but for what they have said against me, I'm seeking advice from my lawyers, and I'll take it up. Some aggrieved parents and residents are therefore calling for a total change of the caliber of teachers in the school. We want a mass transfer of teachers from this school, this woman says. We don't trust the teachers there anymore.
Statistics for no soon say BBC air Koswa.
There was great discipline in this Ejusuman Senior High School, but now it has deteriorated. We want the discipline back in this school, she adds. Prince Apia reporting.
Now, he was alive in faraway Libya, but his family held his funeral in Ghana after they were informed he had died in a bomb explosion in that country. However, the 27-year-old survived the explosion and was hospitalized for months in Libya. Call this the story of a ghost comeback to life, but the hope of Abubakar Lamine to make a better life for himself in another country has now left him with life-changing scars, and his old friends are unable to recognize him. Maxwell Agbaba caught up with him at his Nima residence and reports.
Sounds of Abubakar and his uncle praying inside a mosque on the compound where he lives. They bow down together in prayers on a mat. He has been scarred for life. His lips have turned reddish pink as a result of the injuries. His left eyebrow has vanished. His left ear also completely bent. His hairline has shifted backwards. I was unable to make him out in an old photograph with him in dreadlocks. His old friends are unable to recognize him now. The scars from the burns are visible on his arms, fingers, and face. He showed me his medical record from a Libyan hospital, indicating how he was admitted for months. The 27-year-old left to Libya for greener pastures. The plan, he said, was to get to Italy after he makes enough money. That plan never materialized.
Yes, the journey is too far. Well, Libya, the journey is too far. So the desert itself is not easy. To pass the desert top to reach for Libya is not easy. There is no water, no food. I'll go out, I see areas no good. They are shooting everywhere. They are using bomb for anywhere. They are shooting everywhere. They are spoiling everywhere. They are shooting everywhere. We did that place where they have thrown some bomb. We can attach some gas to for that place. Where the gas explode, we catch all of us. Where this thing happen. They are using ammunitions, serious ammunitions, because they are using ammo case, big bombs they are using. I can't mention their names. They are using serious weapons. Libya is too dangerous. So our people Sweden did that place. If your people did for that place, you have to send him some money to come home, because that place is not good at all. So we are praying for anybody who did for that place, forget money, come for us.
People say the grass is always greener at the other side, such that we are often blinded to the green grass directly under our feet. Sometime last year, reports of African migrants being sold into slavery in Libya sparked massive outrage. For some Africans who traveled to Libya, they managed to flee that particular incident, but they could not flee from the conflict that has engulfed that country after the demise of Colonel Muammar al-Gaddafi. I've now met Abubakar's sister Salamatu. She said her family sometime last year held a funeral for his brother after they received news of his demise in an explosion in Libya. Abubakar survived the deadly attack contrary to the report that was sent to his family.
We were there when the guy called that my brother is dead. We were there too for about months, and we called that he has called that he's not dead, that he's in the hospital, he's bent.
Some African migrants used Libya as a transit point to Italy and other parts of Europe. For some people, they settled fully with the hope of bettering the economic conditions. That used to be the story of Libya until a revolution led to the collapse of Colonel Muammar al-Gaddafi's government in 2011. Since then, armed conflicts between rebel groups have become the order of the day, with some Africans caught in the crossfire. Hundreds of African migrants continue to bear the brunt of the conflict in that country, as hundreds of bodies continuously are washed ashore the Mediterranean. Until concrete measures are put in place to arrest the migrant crisis, stories like that of Abubakar's will continue to be with us. Maxwell Agbagba, Joy News.
Sad story there. Now, a lighter story. He became popular in 2013 when he was charged for contempt and imprisoned for 3 days. He's a communications team member for the NDC, and now he wants to lead the party in the 2020 general elections. Stephen Atubiga is very sure he will beat his other contenders, but says they shouldn't be worried because he has a place for them in his future government.
Alban Bagbin will be a very good speaker for me as a president in this country. Okay. And I think he has to step back and look at it at that direction. I'll beat him at the Congress, but I'm very sure that I'll beat Alban Bagbin, but I think he'll be a very good speaker for me under my leadership. And that will also give opportunity in case I travel, my vice travels, at least he'll get the chance to lead the country. He'll taste his, and at the right time, if he'll become a president
for just a day or
yes,
so.
Yes. And Alabi, he's a very, very fine gentleman, and he has paid his dues at the is it UPS? Okay, and I think such a person around me, I look up to that, as a very good special advisor. We could together we could move this country forward. Sylvester Mensah would be a very good foreign affairs minister for me. He's very calm, very gentle. I've gotten closer to him. So they position him themselves very well. It's good. If a president, an incumbent president who has lost, can run again or can be a running mate, unfortunately, if it's doable, I don't mind using him. As your running mate. Yes, but it's impossible because he's been a president before,
So where would the original he fit in your government?
He will be a very good advisor to me at the background.
Now, one would have thought that the former president, John Mahama, would be his biggest challenge, but Mr. Atubiga says the former president is the least of his problems.
I don't think I am afraid of His Excellency John Dramani coming in. Okay. What's his name? His brother Ibrahim Mahama can lead John Dramani's campaign. Okay. I'm not intimidated like my colleagues. I'll beat him at the Congress. Okay. So His Excellency John Dramani, I would love for him to come and join to make the race very easy because the race are very easy.
Do you have the kind of money to contest all these people coming up?
If Ibrahim wants.
You're talking about former
Ibrahim Mahama's brother. Okay. He can lead his brother John. He can lead John Dramani Mahama to come. I will match them dollar to dollar, city to city. So this tells you that the rest will go and be, the rest are going to be a walkthrough. Okay. I have the resources in such a way. I have sponsorships. I have. You remember when we were in government, the businessmen that made us, brought us to power, when they fell neglected, Atubiga was there for them, that they would testify that, I walk them through to get their payments. When they're having any challenges, I am there. One phone call, stuff is there. So they are the same people with the grassroots that are championing my campaign. They did most of my posters. All the regions that I go to, my hotel is being paid for. Cars that I rent, is being paid for by somebody. And I believe that, like I said, politics is business. So, and people have confidence in me. They invest in me. And let me tell you something.
Headlines at the top of the hour. Gitmo 2 detainees to stay a while longer in Ghana as government grants them refugee status. Imani Ghana says government has shown reasonable progress towards fulfilling its campaign promises in assessing President Akufo-Addo's 1 year in office. In business, Teachers and Education Workers Union TEWU confirms receipt of its share of over 3.5 billion cedis paid by government from temporary pension funds account at the Bank of Ghana.